Hey guys, remember to like the video and hit subscribe.
So
I mean, we could talk about what are your economic positions? It sounds like you flirt with socialism a little, or what do we got here?
yes, I am an anti-capitalist.
An anti-capitalist.
Yes,
So how
a nationalist. Nationalism and socialism are interchangeable and cannot exist without one another.
well,
So
that's absolutely not true. But well, for the sake of the argument, we can talk about socialism if you want. So are you like a favor of like completely abolishing the profit motive? Do you want like the government to be in charge of central
No.
planning, or like what? I guess like what is your? I'm not trying to corny. I'm just curious. Like what does your ideal economy look like?
I mean, I think that small businesses are okay, but I do think command economies are, in retrospect, now starting to look more appealing. Especially now, we see how China was able to weather the 2008 recession compared to America, which struggled to get out of it. And even now with the coronavirus, you see how decisive and the central banks in China are, which are run by the government, in having banks loan at zero interest to small businesses, prioritizing struggling families, and so on. Then we look at what's happening in America. You get $1.5 trillion zero interest loan to Goldman Sachs and other banks, private banks like that, who actually it's no strings attached. They get this funny money, and they can loan that money at whatever price they want. If it's a bear market, they can retrench on credit like they did in 2008, which is why the recession lasted so long. Basically, you didn't see any. Basically, what I'm saying is that the private banking system is the U.S. Federal Reserve, which is privately owned, also giving zero interest money to these banks and hoping a couple dollars trickle down to the rest of us. And I don't think that's a fair system or a functional system. And we see now with the problems with the supply chain and things like the businessmen who are very unpatriotic in this country. There's lots of problems with capitalism.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So in terms of command economies looking more appealing, I don't think any command economy played out very successfully in the history of the world that I'm aware of. I think there were a couple. There's like, I don't know if people bring up like Catatonia or some shit that have lasted for like a couple years. But China is definitely not a command economy. Like they have a mixed market that responds to private incentives. The government is the owner of a lot of these businesses, but it's still very much not a command economy. The government does not dictate which goods and services are produced. They respond to market incentives, which is a capitalist idea. So China would never be.
If the Chinese government, if these companies.
Well, actually, wait. I'm sorry. Hold on. You said like 7 things. I got to respond to them instead of letting you get away with every ridiculous thing you said. The idea that central banks in China are ran by the government, so they make loans at 0% interest. I mean, the U.S. Federal Reserve has kept interest at historically low rates for like the past decade.
I didn't say that. The Chinese bank, the People's Bank, isn't loaning at 0% interest.
Okay, so
yeah.
What is the point of bringing that up?
The point of bringing that up is that the money they give out to underlings has strings attached, that they have to use it to help people, rather than use it for whatever they want.
Oh, sure. We do that in the United States. That's what our government budget goes towards. We don't dictate, obviously, what private companies do with their money, but that's because we run a capitalist economy, I guess. But I mean, we have Congress to dictate spending from the federal government. You're talking about a $1.5 trillion no interest. Are you talking about the recent repo market thing in the United States?
What I'm talking about is partially that, but what I'm talking about
so real
in general,
quick, I'm sorry, I can't let you go because you said like 7 things, and if I let you go off, then I've got like 20 more things to respond to. Right. So the recent $1.5 trillion thing, that wasn't funny money or random whatever loan. That was the Treasury providing liquid cash to financial institutions in exchange for Treasury notes. Like they're not just giving them money; they're exchanging like
keeping
cash.
Them stock with money.
Yeah, but they're trading it. It's it's collateralized debt. It's a secured debt. That's not just nothing, right? So that would be like the federal government giving me $100 and then me giving them back like a Treasury note for $100. And then like
it's at 0% interest.
It's a secured debt. Every debt, even consumer debt, is very, very low interest if it's secured. That's why our car loans.
But it's higher than 0%.
It can be, sure. I mean, you can
it is.
Well, you can get a 0% interest car loan. Everybody in the audience knows that those exist. You can get 0%.
They exist, but they're not. You know what's funny? If I was Goldman Sachs, if I behaved financially, like Goldman Sachs does. I would not get a 0% loan from anyone in my personal life if I use money like they do.
That's because you're an individual. You're not a company. You have a fundamentally different operation.
Bank run by Jews.
No,
that's
it has nothing to do with Jews and everything to do with your total lack of
Who
understanding of
runs
financial
Goldman
markets.
Sachs?
It doesn't matter who runs
Foreman?
Goldman Sachs. We're not talking about the
Of course it
owner.
runs- of
No, it
course it
doesn't matter.
matters.
It doesn't matter. You're pivoting
Oh, it
so
doesn't
hard.
matter.
You're about to tear your ACL. Okay, calm down. All right. It has
Oh,
nothing to
okay.
do with who's running the banks. We haven't even gotten to the Jews yet. Don't worry. I'm sure we'll get there. Okay.
Oh, we
the
will.
idea of providing liquidity to banks, okay, by exchanging their treasury notes with actual cash so that they can
Listen,
continue
I'm
to.
not disputing this. I'm not disputing this.
But you
What
said
I'm
one. Oh, no,
disputing
no. You
is
said
why don't-
1.5
why don't we
trillion in
have-
funny money. It's
what-
not
what I-
funny
what
money.
I-
It's a
what I-
fundamental
what I-
misunderstanding of this economic transaction.
What I'm disputing, what the problem I have with the current system
Okay.
is that the Federal Reserve gives 0% interest cash to Goldman Sachs, but does not do it to average families. That's my problem. Okay. Why do we have to have Goldman Sachs as a middleman to loan to small businesses and to working families when we can just open up Federal Reserve banks and loan it to people directly? Why don't we just do that?
Because our current understanding of the economy is that you can't just print and lend infinite money at 0% interest rate. Now, obviously, our
But
economic.
you can with Goldman Sachs.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. So you
First of
can
all,
do it.
I don't.
Just
I
not
don't even
for
think. I
ordinary
don't
people.
because these people have different jobs in the market. It's not like Goldman Sachs is going out and buying and running car
You
companies
don't
and
have
paying.
an argument. You
What?
don't have an argument.
Wait,
You're
hold on.
literally
You just said
going
like
to white knight
35. You
for
just said
Goldman
like
Sachs
35 wrong
getting
things in a row.
0%
Wait.
interest.
Come on,
You
dude.
can't give out.
Dude,
you're
this is
saying
not a
you-
good
you're
faith
saying
argument.
You're saying you can't give 0% loan cash to ordinary people, but you can give it to investment banks to loan to ordinary people with usury. Why? Why is that?
If you want,
What
we can
is the
spend like
actual
if you want, we
explanation
can
for that
if
other
you
than
want,
corruption?
Have you? Well, I don't know. You run a blog on this. Have you ever talked to an actual economist that studies finance that can give you a reason on why these loans are working? Do you think it's just some giant conspiracy and that
cares?
normally
Yes, I do
who
think
cares? I think you should care if you're going to sit here ranting about it.
Who cares what these phony baloney economists, often in the pay, they work for foundations that take donations from Goldman Sachs, say to rationalize a intuitively bullshit system.
So
I'm saying.
So hold on, just so I can understand. So all the educated people around the world, anybody that studies central banking finance, all of these people
That's
are on the
not what I
payrolls of the
said.
mysterious Jews.
That's
All the
not
people that
what I
study
said,
economics.
because there are many educated people that criticize this in the exact same way I do. There's a lot of different opinions when it comes to this practice. There are some people that get lost in the web of semantics and oftentimes bullshit.
No. It's not just semantics. No. It's not just. You can't just hand wave every explanation as semantics because it doesn't fit your weird conspiracy that Jews are running the world.
I didn't say that alone.
You
said
literally,
that
in a
even
conversation about finance, you decided to bring up who owns Goldman Sachs when it's not
I'm
relevant to the
saying-
operation
I'm
of the financial system. You're trying to pivot so hard because you want to talk about Jews that you won't even sit here and think for 2 seconds of your understanding of the financial system works, the way that it how it works.
You're attacking me.
I'm
You're
not
attacking me,
attacking you.
and you're not actually addressing. You're not at. Let me
I'm
ask
not
a very
attacking
simple.
you. I'm
let me ask
literally
you, let me
bringing
ask-
up what you just said.
Hold
in this
on. Let me ask you.
conversation.
Let me repeat. Let me repeat my question. Let me repeat my
Okay,
question
go for
very
it.
slowly.
Okay, repeat your question.
Very slowly. Grab your stress ball. Here. Why is it? Again, give me an answer.
Mhm.
Why is it that the Federal Reserve can provide cash liquidity at 0% interest to Goldman Sachs, but can't provide it to ordinary people?
Because ordinary
is it?
people do not have the collateral to back up that debt and cannot pay back those massive sums of money in as short a time period as massive financial institutions like Goldman Sachs can. A person can't hand over their car, get a car and then pay back that loan in 3 months. If you look at this $1.5 trillion repo thing that you just recently brought up, the timelines on these loans are incredibly short. It's done for liquidity, not so that they can just take it and invest in banks. They have to pay these back, these massive $1 trillion or more for individual institutions, hundreds of billions or tens of billions. They have to pay back these loans in a matter of months. An average person, you could probably, I guess if you wanted to get a loan like that, you could, but you would default on it every time. An average person can't take a loan out for $250,000 and pay it back in 3 months like Goldman Sachs can. Like collateral.
Then why, if Goldman Sachs is so great with their money and so responsible, why do they need a $1.5 trillion cash injection from the government?
Because
Why?
Because if we can have a government that helps us weather great financial difficulties. Why?
You're not answering the question.
I am answering the question. It's not complicated because we wouldn't expect every single business to
Why
give
don't
itself.
they have cash?
Because
Why don't
holding
they have
cash reserves is a detriment to the economy. Nobody wants to just hold on to cash. We want that money to be lent. The whole reason why the Fed is injecting liquidity into these institutions is because we don't want them to hold on to cash. We want that money to be, it's called the velocity of money, right? We want it to be circulating in the economy. I don't want Goldman Sachs to have $10 trillion in its reserves. I want that lent out to American businesses and to American people to buy shit.
If you want money circulating in the economy, because the point I'm making, you're saying that people don't have collateral, they're not going to pay it back. What I'm saying is, instead of using Goldman Sachs as a middleman that charges interest, they charge interest on their loans. If you look at credit card interest, it could range wildly depending on your credit history. They charge interest on their loans, right? So what I'm saying is, why doesn't the Federal Reserve, for people that want to, that can take that money, and people that need it, especially to get back on their feet, why doesn't the Federal Reserve give it to people directly at 0% interest? You know, a lot of people that are in consumer debt are actually fighting every month just to pay the interest.
Yeah.
Okay.
The fact that
so
you would
let's
compare,
take the interest out of the equation, and let's actually have a credit system that is fair. Because it's not fair that Goldman Sachs, if your point is that we need money circulating in the system, what better way to do it than to loan it to small businesses, than to loan it to people directly at 0% interest? What better way than to do that?
I've already answered this question. If you don't understand the difference between trading liquid cash for a treasury note versus credit card interest that is totally unsecure, if you don't understand, maybe for people in the audience that are wondering, why is my credit card interest rate 24%, but my car note is 6% or 5%? Why is my home mortgage 3.5%? The reason is because those debts are secured by underlying assets. When Goldman Sachs is trading money, the Federal Reserve, all of that debt is collateralized and it's backed up by underlying assets. They pay this debt back sometimes in a matter of days, sometimes in 12 hours. A human that buys something, a normal consumer that buys something on a credit card at 24% interest is doing so because if they default on that debt, then you're out of luck. I can't go to a person that owes me $10,000 in credit card debt and go into their house and steal their My Little Pony collection or like a computer desk or a monitor they bought. Like, no, that debt is unsecure. The types of loaning that are done to financial institutions is fundamentally different than the types of loans that are done to individuals. This is basic finance. This is not worth talking about. We should move on to the next topic. Like, if you don't understand the difference between a credit card loan and a repo market, these are fundamentally different things.
Why did Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, because the kind of red herring you're using is
it's not a red herring, it's finance 101. But go ahead. Sorry.
The kind of logic you're using is that yes, people, you might not get paid back, so on. Problem is, why did Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs in the 2008 crisis, especially, why did they need the government to stabilize them? Clearly, they're not so stable in terms of their obligations either. So why is it that they can do, Goldman Sachs is notorious around the world for its, quote, exotic financial instruments. It's basically a bunch of really dirty scheming stuff going on. And that's not just my opinion. This is something shared by many people.
Welcome to derivative markets, of course, sure.
Yeah. So why is it that knowing all of this, the government, again, gives them liquidity at 0% interest, knowing how irresponsible they are with this money, and not ordinary people who may be, in some cases, just as irresponsible, but in other cases will actually pay their stuff back. There are studies on, for example, microfinance loans, which I find repulsive on an ethical level, but there's studies that poor people in working class people tend to be better at paying these small loans off than Goldman Sachs is with its obligations.
This is a
Not
horrible
just
example,
Sachs.
given that you brought up the 2008 bailouts. Those were paid back to the federal government with interest. So you're just wrong on that. First,
that's
well,
fine,
no.
But why did they get bailed out?
So,
and a person behind on their mortgages who's unemployed get a special loan at 0% interest to pay their mortgage until they get back on their feet?
Sure.
And
so
are able
people,
to pay back the zero interest back?
So that happened. Yes. That was called the Home Affordable Refinance Program, HARP. It was done under Obama.
Sure.
I think it ended a few years ago. But
Many
yeah,
people
could
still
qualify.
were foreclosed.
Sure, many
still
people were
foreclosed
because
on.
there was a huge housing bubble. Of course, sure. Oh my God, it's like
okay.
no. You can't say when you just like you happen to stumble into a point that was marginally correct after drunkenly hammering at like every incorrect point you could on the store on your way to the bathroom. Okay, so hold on, wait, chill.
You know.
So okay, so there's two things going on here. Okay, you've got two separate questions that you're confusing with the other. So one is, should massive financial institutions that are the backbone of our economy be allowed to partake in speculative markets that might be damaging to the overall economy? This is an amazing question, and in my opinion, the answer is probably not. It seems really unhealthy. Then the second question you're asking is why do large businesses need a cash injection from the government to ensure liquidity in times of crisis? Well, that's
not what I'm saying. I'm saying why not large businesses, okay? Because Goldman Sachs actually is, even with listen, I'm no fan of corporations, but the corporations got to go through Goldman Sachs to get the cash at interest. And if you know anything about how these heavily indebted corporations operate, they are usually just paying off the interest every month. So this is
what do you mean by just paying? No. What are you talking about? This is not how the world of corporate loans works.
The burden of the interests on their debt is what a lot of it causes more problems. It just gets them deeper in the hole.
So no, we would have to we would have to I don't want to put you on the spot, but corporate debt, it feels like you're doing this really common thing that I see a lot of lefties do. You're conflating corporate debt with personal debt. Corporations use debt and leverage debt to become. You absolutely are. Corporations can hold debt on their books. Sometimes corporations even take on debt to do like stock buybacks or something. Like a corporation can leverage debt to make money in far different ways than an individual can. If an individual tells you, I've got $20,000 in debt, and my annual income is $60,000 a year or whatever, that's really bad. Sometimes corporations that have taken on a lot of debt are actually seen as more favorable because they're using that debt to finance larger capital expansion. This comparison of
that's actually not true.
That absolutely is true.
Most corporations are actually using their debt to, like you said, stock buybacks. That's the big one in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's great. Look at the stock market and look at Boeing shaking their coffee cup outside the government.
What does the current pandemic have to do with? Wait. What does the current pandemic have to do with stock buybacks?
How about the diving stock market?
So that was because of stock buyback? I thought that stock buybacks were supposed to artificially inflate stock value. Why are they going down?
Dude, why are you being facetious?
I'm not being facetious. You just have no idea how finance works. You thought you could have this conversation. It's hilarious.
I'm telling you. What I'm telling you. Is
are we going to talk about the oil crisis?
These corporations have, like Boeing, have been using their debt powered machinery, their debt powered finances, unbalanced books, to buy their own stock so that it's more. It's of higher value on the stock market. Artificially, it bubbles up.
How is that artificial?
Because if you're buying your own stock and you're engaging in that kind of speculative activity, you're not doing anything productive.
How is that? That's literally
you're
the
not
opposite of
building
speculative.
anything.
Wait. That's because there are no good investments to make. That's pretty common of large companies. Sometimes
if there's no good if there's no good investments to make, why are they getting in debt?
For a variety of reasons. Well, right now it's because airline travel has been slashed by 80%. Do you think there's any other industry that could survive that?
But they were doing this. They were making record profits. They were getting more debt.
No. This is
the
not
airline
true.
Industry.
It's not true.
Various industries got the Trump tax cut. They got more money than before. They had more money than before, and they still were getting into massive debt. You see this also with the oil shale and all that, getting into massive debt and doing what with the debt? Mergers, buybacks. It's parasitical activity that benefits the shareholders but doesn't produce anything for our country.
By definition, what you just said doesn't make sense.
The second there's a little bump in the financial markets like we're having now, there's a huge, there's trillions of dollars being wiped out.
You think this is a little bump in the market right now?
Well,
you think this pandemic? No, hold on. I just want to hear you say that again. You think this is a little bump in the market when entire fucking states?
Why? You know exactly what I meant.
No, I know what you mean. I'm not being. Can you stop saying every time I call you out on some retarded shit you say that I'm being facetious?
You're very. You know what? If you want to engage in name calling, like I said,
I didn't call you any names. I said you're saying really dumb shit.
Go have your cookie and your glass of milk and get your girlfriend to change your nappy, and we can have an adult conversation. I'm trying to talk to you like a civilized human being, and you're acting out. Like, why do you call everything? No, that's retarded. No, listen.
Well, because I'm asking you questions, and instead of just giving me simple answers, you have to go off into all these like massive like conspiracy theories.
It's not a massive conspiracy theory. What I meant, if you want me to be extra clear and extra definitive,
I do. So can you tell me how a stock buyback is a bad thing? That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear.
When there's a problem in the stock market. All that debt you got into to buy your own stock so that you can give your shareholders and various finance capitalist speculators bigger profits without doing any work or taking any risks in the short term. When you do that, when there's a problem with the stock market, these companies, like Boeing is doing now, they go to the taxpayer to bail them out.
So first,
okay.
Sure. Okay, so let me go all the way back, because holy shit, there was so much said here that was just so wrong.
So just give me one. I'm sorry, just 1 second. Just 1 second. Hold on.
Okay.
How you doing, Ralph?
Go ahead.
Kill myself. Holy shit. This is like every economically uninformed socialist I've ever talked to. It makes me want to jump off a cliff. Oh my god.
I'm just the friendly host. I don't know. We'll see.
I know.
Speaking of economics, I think it's time to read the super chat.
Yes, agreed. Okay.
All right, okay.
So, well, let me read these, and you guys can have a final word on each side there, and then
wait, hold on, before we do this because there's so much.
Okay, go ahead. You know what?
Okay,
go ahead. Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Fine. So let me back all the way up. So when you say, why do major institutions need financial injections or cash injections or liquidity injections from the Fed or whatever in order to stay afloat? The reason is because we want to keep our economy moving. We don't want every single business hoarding money or not loaning money or sitting on piles of money in anticipation of a massive worldwide pandemic. That would be catastrophic to the entire economy. We want to keep the economy moving. We want to keep workers employed. We want to keep, hopefully, wages going up, hopefully cost of goods down. This is why we want companies to generally operate on an understandable margin, which doesn't mean preparing for a worldwide pandemic constantly. That's why, if a worldwide pandemic does happen, we look to the federal government to say, hey, can you give our businesses a little bit of a hand to keep them afloat? This is like one of the most no-brainer policy decisions in the world. This is literally a win-win-win-win policy decision. If the government gives a cash injection to these companies, it helps the companies not go underwater. It helps the workers not get fired or laid off. It helps the federal government or the taxpayer, because those loans are often paid back with interest. And it helps consumers that can continue to buy products for cheaper costs than they would if all of these companies were to go under and the cost of goods either increases or these goods disappear completely. So the idea that whoa, hold on. You said so much. Okay, so the idea that it's bad for the government to ensure liquidity, like, what are you going to argue against, like FDIC insurance next or whatever? Like, the idea that it's bad that the government is going to provide liquidity in times of crises for businesses, and that businesses should somehow just be ready to take a 50% cut in business on a whim would be so catastrophically destructive to our finance markets and our entire economy that it's laughable to even suggest that. Firstly, secondly,
you're doing a great job.
No, stop! I can't even finish. I haven't even finished getting through all the wrong shit you said. So stock buybacks are Okay. Oh, Jesus. Hold on. Firstly, airlines are not these massively profitable industries. I went ahead and I shot the last like couple decades of profits or whatever, or the last 15 years of American Airlines. They were literally just profitable. I think like 5 or 6 years ago. And yeah, they were posting decent profits, but the profit of like $7 billion when your revenues are 40+ billion. Those margins are generally pretty thin. The margins for airlines are very thin in the United States, and they always have been. The quickest way to become a millionaire in the United States is to have $1 billion and buy an airline. There's a reason why these things go out of business all the time, and the idea that there's some massively profitable company is just not true. It's not supported by any data whatsoever. Nobody ever seriously makes this argument ever. For a second, okay, hold on. Okay, that's great. That's great. You can come back. You can come back.
Big tax cuts, but go ahead.
You can go back and do all of this when I'm done this. Jesus Christ. Okay, also, this idea that stock buybacks are some parasitic activity, when by definition, a stock buyback is returning money to the shareholders that invested in your company, is literally the exact opposite of a parasitic activity. A parasitic activity would be a company making a lot of money and sitting on that money, and it can't do anything else with it in the economy, being a parasite with that money that's just sitting there. A better idea would probably be to buy back stocks, return money to shareholders, and let those shareholders take those dollars and invest them in other companies that can invest those in profitable projects. Now, if you want to talk about something like, well, when Trump gave those big tax cuts, the only thing companies did with it was do buybacks instead of investing in their companies, I agree. Those tax cuts were stupid. But that's a criticism of the tax cuts themselves, not stock buybacks in general. Any company that reaches a sufficient size or economy of scale is either going to be paying back a lot of its profits in stock buybacks, or if we make those illegal, in the form of dividends to their shareholders. If you invest in a company, you want to make money on it, obviously. This is true of every single investment you could ever possibly make.
Okay.
Okay.
All
There-
right.
okay.
Let me just say a quick thing, Ralph, and then
That's
we can
fine.
move on.
Yeah. that's fine.
Here's my response. So this is a fundamental difference in our values, Destiny. You believe the shareholders, as long as they're getting dividends, then that's functional. That's fine. I don't believe that. I think
Never
our
said
country. You said, hey, they're doing what they have to do to deliver
I'm
profits.
just explaining
to
basic
shareholders.
finance to you right now.
All right,
I never
let
said
him
that's how it
finish.
should
But
be.
hold on, let me just say one last thing.
get
Let me
in.
just
Go
say
ahead.
one last
Go
thing.
ahead.
now.
Okay.
Yeah, let him get
Uh,
in. Yeah, go ahead.
Destiny admitted before that there's nothing. He said it. His words. These companies have nothing to invest in. Your words. So if they have nothing to invest in, how does giving them more money raise wages or improve the more people with jobs or create a better economy for everyone? It doesn't. That is the fundamental difference in what you and I think. Sure, it does help the shareholders. It does help the Boeing CEO, whose planes are literally dropping from the sky, get a massive bonus in a year where he's retired from the position. So the point I'm making is that I don't agree with this system, and I think it should be changed. That's the fundamental disagreement. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, so
All right, now
real
let
quick,
me
wait,
read
wait,
the-
oh shit, wait, just one quick thing. I'm so sorry,
No,
Ralph. I love you. You're gonna have
but
so many
then I'm
super
gonna
chats. You're gonna have so many super chats. Okay,
Go ahead.
so just real quick, when you said this is where we fundamentally disagree, I literally agree with you. I don't know if you didn't hear me or you didn't understand that, but I literally said if companies have nothing to invest in, giving them massive tax cuts is a really dumb idea. Very critical of Trump for doing that. If you're giving tax cuts to these companies and all they're doing is returning value to shareholders, of course you wouldn't expect a tax cut to raise wages. Wages, like labor, that's a cost of doing business. Giving more money to a company to raise wages makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. That's trickle-down economics. The Republicans push it as some weird supply side meme. It's dumb as If you want to raise
we
wages,
agree.
yeah, sure. But I never disagreed on that. But there's a big difference between needing to provide liquidity to companies in times of crisis versus giving them tax cuts in order for them to just like send the money back to shareholders,
Sure.
which makes no sense.
My solution to that would be to nationalize Boeing. If the government is willing to, if this company continues repeatedly to be begging for bailouts for liquidity, then perhaps it shouldn't be owned by people that give themselves massive bonuses when their planes are dropping down from the
That's
sky.
awesome. So why don't we just have that
All right.
conversation about nationalizing companies rather than making all these weird, horrible
All
finance
right.
arguments that make
I
no
was
sense?
critiquing capitalism.
You're
there,
not
but
critiquing
okay.
it. You're just making a bunch of wrong statements. That's like being critical of human biology because we have 17 fingers. It doesn't
Okay,
make
all
sense
right,
if your
let's move
critiques
on.
are
All
wrong.
All right.
Now we're an hour in, so let me read these and then I'll let Stryker bring up his topic here. Now, there's several topics. I don't know. We'll see what comes next. It'll be up to you, Stryker. Let me read these though. It has been a fiery conversation so far. I think that's an understatement. Terry J mentioned for me to ask the question. Y'all ask that question later. Sans Wine, subscribe monthly. Thank you, sir. Paramedic says Parabellum. Let's see. Unruh with the diamond didn't say anything. Quambomb87 says, I'm going to watch a Dame replay. All right, enjoy that. Base Anglo says, is Destiny willing to debate Patrick Casey? I would say yes, because we were trying to set that up at one point. Maybe we'll try to set it up again. I don't know. Pinky Kelter says some kind of money from the Middle East. Money printer goes brr. Save Western Civilization says round 1 was Destiny. Round 2 clearly going to Stryker. Digital Pimp says Stryker for making me agree with Destiny. King Porgy says round 1 Destiny, round 2 Stryker with Destiny. Spurging win. Robert 32 says Kelly Miller is trash. Bruni Strongbear says, why would a personal loan from the federal government have to be the same amount as to Goldman Sachs? Porsche person, since Destiny's on Twitch, I'll be careful there. Destiny is a big meanie. Quote Eric Stryker. The Real Tinchy says Adderall invented by Germans. Super pill. Wignat's mad. That made me laugh. Robert 32 says Destiny send a ninja to Ralpho. Bet you won't. No, I bet he won't either. King 4G says how to logic with Destiny, Red Bull, and Adderall. Robert 32 says olive oil economy is through the roof. Arcade Outpost says that those people in the Middle East power being taboo is testament to it. I'm sure we'll get to those people in the Middle East here in a moment. Now let me refresh these because there are some on-stream elements talking about peaceful sunsets. I won't read that one. Eric DeMamp says, why does Eric Stryker still refer to himself as Eric Stryker? Obviously, I'm not going to read the name that you're putting out there. And then I'll leave that there. But thank you for the contribution. Sancho13 says Destiny argues in bad faith, is a proponent of incest and twincest, argues on the side of eating shit and drinking piss, doesn't bathe with his greasy hair and love of dirty tricks. Why give him attention? Well, I mean, I like him as a guest.
Wait, what is the difference between incest and twincest? Wouldn't one be a subset of the other? Like, if somebody that supports incest probably supports twincest by default. But okay. Really.
Plus, we've had this conversation.
Yeah, bang for your buck there on that dono. Okay.
Blue Division says, so Vaush was scared to debate a real socialist, so he sent someone else and said, look, let's not bring Vaush into this. We have a whole subset of Vaush. I'm sure everybody knows what happened last weekend. So we'll leave that there. But thank you. Let's see. This one says, can we please pass to the phase when the Muslim wignats on wheelchairs get to occupy Wall Street? Also, I found a Brazilian nationalist who's willing to come over to talk about the situation down there. Yeah, email me. I'll talk to a Brazilian nationalist. Let's see. All you guys should take a modern arts course. You'll learn about why and how some arts and media like music has changed. You would understand why certain things are considered high art. Why we don't go out in waves to listen to 1600s folk music. Actually, I didn't know that your major was music, Destiny. That was knowledge to me. I do now, though. Kegs for Kavanaugh says, can't force a man who can't tell the difference between black. Oh God, why do they? Black.com and Wagner to appreciate art. Strike hitting his stride, forcing Destiny to shill for bankers. Most Americans want to, I won't read that, but don't like. What's more productive, loaning to new families or Goldman speculation? Blue Division says, Striker, stop being civil with this person. Destiny keeps cutting you off. It's obnoxious. Now, Striker, it's your time, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. So let's talk about I know Destiny has been reading a lot of historical stuff. We'll get to that later, but let's talk about nuts and bolts here. So what, I'm a proponent of total immigration restriction to all Western countries. I'm guessing from the series of opinions you have that you're for mass immigration. Am I right about that, Mr. Destiny?
Not generally. I'm for immigration as long as it makes economic sense, I guess. As long as within reasonable restrictions. I'm not gonna have any race quotas or whatever. If I don't know where you're going with it, but
well, there is no economic sense to immigration. There's no need for immigration in the United States right now.
That's our unemployment is literally at 3. Our unemployment is literally the lowest it's ever been in the history of the United States. It's at 3.5%. Like, businesses are hiring at
believe that number? You believe that number? You think only 3% of people in this country are out of work? You really think that?
That's not what the U3 unemployment stands for. I'm sorry, you're going to cite the U6 like I've never heard of it before? We can pretend that there's a meaningful...
Why do you use that? Why do you use the fake statistic rather than the real?
Well, because that's a really good question, Yeah. And if we were to wander in... Well, exactly. That's a really great question. No, I'm not being disingenuous. It's a very difficult question for economists to ask. There's a lot of different ways to keep track of unemployment. For instance, do we count young people that are under the age of 18 but could still technically work but would have to do it at restricted hours? Do we count older people that have willingly left the workforce? Do we count people that are collecting Social Security but are still working? It's a really hard... Do we count people that are not really looking for work? Do we count people that are discouraged from looking for work? That's a really complicated question.